Hey guys, Chris Tate here for CG Tuts, and in this tutorial we're going to be building this old water tower model. So we'll be going through the modeling and texturing process in depth. If you look over here you can kind of see the order that we're going to build it in. Alright, so I'm going to start down on the tower piece here. We have a lot of boards on this thing and that's the most complex part, so what I'm going to do is just kind of go through a blocking stage. We'll lay in some simple geometry, just using boxes, kind of figure out the size, the placement, the length of all our boards, and then when we get everything kind of the way we want it, we'll go back and do detail pass, where we'll actually manually subdivide the boards, add some resolution, chamfer down the edges, and then we're going to use the paint deformation tools inside of Max to just make everything look kind of warped and out of whack, because we do want it to look like old wood. Okay, so once the tower's out of the way, I'm going to move down and start working on the concrete footing blocks here, the water pipe underneath, and then we'll go up to the tank, do that, the roof, and finally the pinnacle to finish it off. And again, we'll use the paint deformation tools just to warp everything as we go. Alright, so once the model's final, I'll go ahead and unwrap it. I've been asked to skip that process in this particular tutorial, so I won't be able to show you the UV mapping process for it, but I will quickly discuss how I'm going to approach it, and then after I get it mapped, I'll show you how I organized and laid out my UVs and packed them. Okay, and even though it looks fairly complex, something like this is actually fairly quick and easy to unwrap. So if you do need a little extra help, there's some good tutorials on CG Tuts that cover UV mapping. In my previous tutorial, the how to create a realistic looking mailbox in Max, I go through the process of UV mapping using Max and the demo version of Hedis UV layout, and that's also available on CG Tuts if you want to check it out if you need a little help. Okay, so once it's built, mapped, we'll render out a UV template just for use in Photoshop, and then I'm going to actually export the model out and take it into xNormal, which is a free program we'll use just to bake a quick ambient occlusion map for the tower. Okay, and when we get to that point, I'll give you the URL where you can find it. So once we have the AO baked out, we'll move back to Max, set up some quick 3-point lighting, just so we can preview our texture as we're working on it. And I'll be going back and forth from Photoshop to Max quite a bit as we go through this. And then we'll just start building the diffuse map, the specular map, and the bump map. And I'm going to be using 4K maps on this particular model. And they're fairly detailed, we have a lot of layers, so we'll go through that process in depth, and then we'll go for our 3 maps, all completed. Go back over to Max, assemble our shader, make any final tweaks we need to, and then we'll just do a quick render to finish the project off. Okay, and I'll be using Max 9. If you have a newer version, that's cool. I don't see why you should have a problem following this. xNormal, again, it's free, so you can just download that and install it. And I'll be using Photoshop CS4, but any version should work just fine. Okay, so that's the plan. Let's jump over to Max and get started on this guy. Alright, so here we are in Max, and I usually like to use some sort of reference when I model, but in this case, when I built the original version of the tower, I didn't actually use any reference images for it. So just so we'd actually have something to look at as we work through the tutorial, I went ahead and just made a little reference sheet we can look at. Okay, so I'm just going to open that up quickly. So let's go into the Utilities tab, open up the asset browser. Okay, I just have this one image here that I made in Photoshop using the original version of the model we'll be building. Alright, and we'll just use this, kind of as a quick guide and some reference just to help us figure out where all our boards and pieces need to be. Okay, and if you'd like to download the image yourself, you can find it on my site, christateonline.com, and there's a link to it in the tutorial section. Alright, so you can go grab it. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do for this is just start working on the tower first, and rather than actually, detail any of the boards, I think what I might do is actually kind of just block out most of the tower frame here, just using simple plain boxes, and then I'm going to go back over it again, and we'll actually do kind of like a detail pass where we start moving stuff around and warping our pieces and so on. Okay, so let's start with the corner posts, we'll get those in, and we'll just work from there. Alright, so let's minimize this, close up the asset browser, go back to the create panel. I'm just going to grab a box here and just drag one out in the top view. Okay, kind of small, we'll give it some random height. Alright, and before we tweak the size, I'm just going to set my scene up here as I usually do. So I'm going to turn my grids off with G in each view. Okay, turn the smooth and edge faces on, F3, F4 in each view. Okay, and I'm going to turn these selection brackets off here because I'm not a fan of them, so we'll hit J in each view. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to make my mesh color black as well. Okay, so we'll just assign black to it, hit M, open up the material editor, and just apply a default gray shader. Okay, and I've had a few people actually ask me why I always make my mesh color black, and there's really no reason to do that besides personal preference. Whatever you make your color over here is the color your edges are going to show up when your pieces aren't selected. Okay, and you can see it's black here. Okay, so that's why I always make it black, because I just prefer to look at it with black edges, but you can use any other color you want to. It doesn't matter. Alright, and another thing I always neglect to mention in my tutorials is the navigation for Max. So I thought I'd just mention that quickly before I forget. So to orbit your camera around in the viewport, you can just hold down Alt and the middle mouse button and just move the mouse around. Okay, to actually pan, it's just the middle mouse button by itself. Okay, and you can zoom with the scroll wheel. Okay, or you can use the buttons down here. It's the same thing, just a little quicker to do it with the keyboard. Alright, so yeah, let's modify the size here. So I'm just going to open up the modify panel, and let's just make the length and the width maybe 10. Alright, we'll make our post square. The height, that's probably actually pretty good right there. So let's just say maybe 73. Okay, we are going to cut the top and bottom off, so we'll start with that. That looks about right. Okay, and if you look on the reference here, you can see that these ones are actually slightly angled. Okay, so before we actually start doing anything to our box, let's actually get it into the right angle. Alright, so I'm going to jump out into the left view, and you can maximize your viewport windows by hitting Alt-W. That's the default keyboard shortcut. Okay, let's hit G, turn our grids back on, and I'm just going to use the origin line here kind of as a reference where our ground plane would be. Okay, and we'll just go to rotate, turn on our angle snaps here to make it a little easier, and I'm just going to give it a little spin, 5 or 10 degrees on the X. Okay, so maybe like that, -10 on the X. Okay, and I'm also just going to move it down so the bottom's just below the origin line here. Okay, and let's right click on it and convert it to editable poly, and we'll just chop the bottom off here using quick slice. So let's turn that on and zoom in here, and I'm just going to go into wireframe with F3, and I'm just going to click over here on the origin line and just go across. Okay, and the quick slice tool will just add a slice through your entire model anywhere that you click here. Okay, so we'll try to keep this line straight because we want the bottom flat, and we'll just click on this side. Okay, so it's sliced all the way through, and we'll do the same at the top. Start below the corner, click, go across, and click again. Alright, just like that, pretty easy. Okay, let's jump out in perspective, and we'll get rid of the top here. So let's go to polygon, just select the 4 side polys, and we'll hit Control I, invert the selection, and just hit delete to get rid of it. Alright, and let's cap the top and bottom. So I'm just going to go to border. They should be selected. If not, just drag through, get both of them, and hit cap to fill them in. Okay, so before we actually make any copies of this, I'm just going to position it a little better. So let's jump back into the top view, turn our grids back on with G. And like I said, I've made this once before already, so I'm pretty sure where I want to put this post. So I'm just going to move it around a bit. Let's actually just open up the move transform by right-clicking the move tool. And just to make it easy, let's just do -30 on the X, and we'll do maybe -40 or 42 on the Y. Okay, I think that's about where I want it, and we'll just leave the Z at what it is and just close it. Okay, and we do want to pay some attention to where we actually place these, because everything else on the model is going to be based on where these 4 posts are sitting. Okay, so we do want to get those right. Alright, so let's copy it. So I'm going to hold down Shift and just drag a copy over here to the other side. Alright, kind of the same position from the origin. Okay, and we'll say copy and OK. And if you've actually done any of my previous tutorials, most of the stuff I've built has been, fairly symmetrical, and I've tried to keep everything clean and nice and even. But in this case, for this tutorial, we're actually going to deviate from that quite a bit, and I'm actually going to try to avoid having any straight lines on the entire model, just to help sell it that it's actually old and it's starting to warp. Because if it was a real tower, it's going to get rained on over and over again. The wood's going to expand and contract, and everything's going to get kind of bowed and warped and out of whack. Okay, so we don't need to be as precise as maybe in some of the other tutorials that I've done. Okay, so let's just grab both of them, and we'll shift drag a copy of them up on the Y. Okay, say copy and OK, and then let's just go to rotate. You want to have your angle snaps turned on here again, and we'll just spin it 180. So they're facing in the right direction, and I'm just going to quickly kind of position them the same spacing from the origin as these guys down here. Okay, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, let's just take a look. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And we could have actually, detailed the post out a little bit before we cloned it, but I think what I'm going to do, like I mentioned, is just kind of block out most of the stuff without any detail, and then we'll go back and actually add our detail. Okay, so I'm just going to start adding in these 2 big side beams here next. Okay, so let's jump out, go into the top view, and let's go grab another box on the curry panel and just drag one out here. above these two posts, okay, just like that. Give it some height, and let's jump out into the left view and just actually position it a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the grids with G, hit F3, and we'll just drag it up so it's kind of sitting on top of these guys up here. Okay, and again, don't worry too much about the placement. We're just going to do this really quickly, and then as we get more pieces in here, we can actually start, pulling and pushing stuff around, making adjustments. So yeah, you don't have to be too precise. Alright, so let's tweak the size here. Alright, for the length, we can probably just do 10, make it easy. Let's do 90 on the width. We do want to have some overhang here, so that looks about good. Okay, and I don't really want this one to be square. As you can see here, it's not quite square, so let's just take the height up a bit, and we'll make it a little taller than it is wide. Okay, maybe like 12 or so. That should be cool. Okay, and let's change the color back to black, throw the shader on there, and we'll just shift drag a copy over to the other side. Hold down shift, drag on the Y, copy and OK. Alright, quickly position this one. Alright, again, don't worry too much about it. And we'll go out into the top view. Alright, so we have these beams here that run in between these two end ones, okay, and you can't tell from these angles, but there's actually 4 of these beams underneath the decking here. Okay, so let's just block those guys in while we're at it. Alright, so let's go grab another box, and we'll just drag one out that fits kind of in between these two. Alright, just like that. Give it a little bit of height, and let's position it. So I'm just going to move it up on the Y in the left view. Try to get it kind of flush with the top of the beams there. And we'll figure out how big it needs to be. Alright, so let's open up the Modify panel. Alright, I might make it a little bit longer. Not too much, maybe 52 or 53, something like that. Okay, the width, it's not too bad. Let's make it maybe a little narrower. So we'll go down to like 7.5. And the height, we may as well just do 10. And you don't have to, match these amounts exactly. It doesn't matter. Alright, so I'm just going to move it over a bit. I want the end to be butted up against the side there, so it actually looks like this thing was actually put together properly. So we don't want to have any interpenetrations. Alright, and let's just grab the beam and the two side posts here and move them back. Alright, just so they're touching the outside of our new box there. Alright, just like that. Select this guy, and let's jump back out into the top view. Alright, so like I said, there's 4 of them, so let's just make some copies. I'm just going to go into wireframe F3. Alright, so we'll just position this one kind of centered on this line, and then I'm going to shift drag a copy over maybe 2 grid lines on the X. And we'll say copy, and this time we'll say we want 3 copies, and hit OK. Okay, just like that. Take a look quickly. Alright, that's probably cool for those guys. Let's actually change the color on them. And if you prefer to have different colors on your pieces so you can tell your parts apart easier, that's cool. You don't have to make everything the same color. Alright, but those look pretty much the position and size that we want, so let's move on. And I think we have 7 deck boards on here. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, so let's just lay those in quickly before we move on to the sides of the tower. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the top view, and let's grab another box here, and we'll just drag one out quickly. Alright, give it a little bit of height, and let's position it in the left view. Alright, drag it up on the Y, get it up on top there. Okay, and we'll figure out the sizes we need here. Just take one more look. Okay, so let's do maybe 80 might actually work here. I might make it a little longer, just so we have some overhang here. Again, I think when we go back over and start detailing stuff, I'll probably make some of these longer, some of them shorter. So don't worry about it too much. We'll just make it maybe like 85 for now. The width 10 looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave that. And the height, I might make it a little thicker, maybe a little closer to 3. Alright, so that's probably cool for that. Let's jump back out into the top view. Alright, just going to kind of move this down a bit. And let's just clone it a couple times. So I'm going to shift drag on the X. Alright, want a little gap between them. And we'll let go, and let's just do copy, and we'll do 6 copies. Hit OK. Alright, and let's actually position these a bit better. Just going to select those, holding control, and just move them over a little bit so they're a little more even. And let's take a look here. Make sure the size is about right. Alright, I think it's pretty good, so let's change the color on those guys again. Okay, and before we actually start adding our cross pieces down here on the sides, let's actually do a save. Alright, so save as. I'm just going to make a new folder quickly, call it water tower, or whatever you like, and we'll just copy the name out, paste it in, and save a copy. Alright, so let's just take another look here quickly. Okay, so I think we can move down and let's maybe start adding these guys here. So I might start with this one. Alright, so I'm going to jump out and jump into the left view. Okay, and let's just go grab another box, and just going to go into wireframe here. Alright, I'm just going to drag one out at the bottom here. That's almost the width of our two posts. Alright, we'll get one in, give it a little height. Okay, and let's just actually move it out so we can see it. Alright, so in the top view, I'm just going to push it over to the left side. Alright, one over there. Let's check it out in the front view. Okay, just against the side there. Again, don't worry about it too much. Alright, so let's figure out how big we need it to be. Alright, I'm going to leave it a little shorter than the width of the post here, just so we have a bit of a reveal. Alright, so let's open up the modify panel. Alright, so let's just tweak this. I might make it a little bit taller, maybe around 7.5 or so. The length is probably good. I might take it down just a bit, maybe around 86 or 87. And let's go a little longer. Alright, and let's make it a little fatter too. So I'm just going to take it up just a little bit. Alright, maybe around 3.2, 3.3, something like that. And again, you don't have to match my amounts. Just you know, do it as much as you feel it needs, wherever it looks right to you. Alright, but that's probably close. So we'll say that's cool for that. So we also need one up here on the top here that's a little shorter. So let's maybe move this guy up slightly. And then we'll just shift drag a copy this one up on the Z. Okay, just up underneath the beams there. Say OK, and let's take another look here. They're pretty much the same. I'm just going to lower the width down a bit so it's a little shorter. Maybe like 70 or so. That's probably cool for those guys. Okay, and let's just change the color on them. And I know I'm speeding through this part, you know, fairly fast, but that's just because when we actually get to the point where we're going to detail this stuff, it's going to take us a bit of time to paint in all our details. So I just want to be quick on the blocking stage. Alright, but you can take more time if you want to until you really get everything where you want it. Alright, so let's grab both these guys and just shift drag a copy on the X to the back. Okay, copy and OK. And we'll just push them in. Okay, and later on we'll actually, you know, maybe adjust the height so everything's not even. But for now we'll just leave them like that. Okay. Alright, so let's just take another look. Alright, so I might just kind of block these guys in here, and then we'll actually add these angle pieces after. So let's jump out. Alright, just go into the front view here. Okay, and I'm going to go grab another box. Again, you can clone your pieces if you want to, but I think it's just quicker to just draw new ones out. So in the front view, I'm just going to draw another one out at the bottom here. Okay, that's a little shorter than our previous ones. Okay, a little thinner. And in the left view, I'm just going to move it over to the right side. Okay, let's figure out where we want to put it here. Alright, so I'm going to move it up just above the board here, so it's like the one on the reference there. So let's pull it up here a bit. Okay, and we'll push it over. Alright, I'm just going to rotate it so it actually matches the angle of the outside of our post there. So let's go to rotate and just turn it 10 degrees. Okay, because that's what we did before. And we'll just push it in so it just touches the side there of the post. Okay, now let's take a look here. Let's go into the modify panel. I might make mine just a little bit longer here. That'll depend on how you want yours to look, but I'm going to go about 84. The length is probably good. I might take the height down just a little bit. I don't think I want it sticking out quite that far. Alright, so I'm going to go maybe around 3 on mine. Alright, but again, you can change this up if you want to. And let's just change the color here quickly. Throw the shader on. Okay, just like that, and I'm just gonna maybe drag this guy over to the other side. Shift drag, okay, on the Y, copy it over, copy into okay, and let's jump out, and we'll just spin it. Again, with rotate in the left view, just so it matches our post on that side, and we'll push it in. Okay, and back to the front view. Alright, just gonna grab that one there, and let's shift drag a copy up on the Y. Alright, copy and OK, and let's just see where we want to put this one. Alright, so I'm just going to move it down just a bit so it's kind of at the bottom of those other two. You can probably see it easier in perspective. Alright, maybe somewhere like that, and let's just move it over so it touches posts. Alright, and I'm just going to tweak the size just slightly. And when we go over it again, we can always, pay more attention to how long we want stuff to be. But that's probably fine for now. Alright, so let's shift drag this guy over to the right, or to the left on the Y. Copy and OK, and we'll jump back into the left view and just make sure it's sitting where we want it to be. So let's rotate it again. Push it over. Alright, just like that. Take one last look. It's always a good idea to, look at your model from every angle, just so you get a better idea of how it's actually going to look when it's done. But I think that's fairly close to our reference so far, so let's just do another save just to be safe. Alright, save as, save another copy. Alright, so let's take another look here. Okay, so now that we've got these guys in basically the right place, I think I'm just going to add maybe these angled ones just quickly. Okay, so let's start with this guy here behind the ladder. Alright, so I'm going to jump out into the left view again. Okay, and let's just go grab a new box. Alright, just going to drag one out here, kind of a random length. Okay, and let's just rotate it. Alright, so I'm going to go to rotate and just rotate it in the left view. I don't know, 30 degrees. Okay, so let's do it 30, and then I'm just going to move it down a little bit. We're going to chop the top and bottom of this guy off, so let's actually rotate a little bit more. So I'm going to go maybe about 35 degrees, okay? And we'll just kind of stick it in the middle there. Alright, so I'm just going to move it over to the front, or to the left side in the front view. Alright, and we just want it sitting against our boards here, down at the bottom there, alright, just on the outside. Okay, and I think I might actually rotate that back a little bit, so I'm going to go back into the left view. Let's turn off the angle snaps here, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a spin. And move it over a bit. I'm just going by the ends here of these two boards. Alright, I want it to come fairly close to the end of those. Alright, just so you can see the little corner there sticking out. It's probably close enough. Okay, and let's chop it off with quick slice again. Okay, so I'm in the left view here. I'm just going to go over to the modify panel. Let's right click and let's actually check and make sure we have the size right before we convert it to editable poly. Alright, so the length's fine. We'll just say 102. That's probably cool. Just going to take one more quick look here. Alright, so I might make it a little thinner than it is. Just slightly. Let's take the height down just a bit. I might go maybe 2.2 or so. Depending on how fat you want yours to look, you can up the length here. Alright, I might go around 7.3. Okay, I think that's close to what we want. Okay, just make sure it's positioned again so it's touching the outside of the boards. Alright, so now let's convert it to editable poly. We have the size right. Jump into the left view, and let's just chop the top and bottom off quickly with quick slice, like we did on our corner posts. Okay, so let's zoom in here in the left view, and I'm just going to start here on the top of that board. Okay, click, and we'll go across and just click. Just like that. Okay, and we'll go up to the top here. Do the same thing. Just cut it off at the point where it meets that crossboard. Take a look here. Alright, that looks about right, so let's get rid of the top and bottom. So I'm just going to go to polygon, select the middle 4 polys, invert the selection with Control I, and then just delete the ends with delete. Okay, and let's cap the holes while we're at it, so we'll go to border and just hit cap. And now that we have the ends cut off, we can actually move it into position. So let's exit border and just push it back. Alright, we want it to look like it's actually sitting on top of the board here and underneath this board up here. Alright, so just position it like that maybe. That looks pretty good. Alright, let's change the color before we clone it. Alright, so let's just take one more look. Okay, so we have one of these on the back as well. You can kind of see it here, but it's the opposite direction as this one. Okay, so to clone this one, I'm just going to jump out and go into the top view. Alright, we'll go into wireframe F3, and let's just go to rotate, turn our angle snaps back on, and we'll just hold down shift and spin a copy of this 180 degrees. Okay, and we'll say copy and OK, and let's just pull it over here to the right side. Alright, and we'll jump back out and into perspective to position it. Okay, so we'll just slide it in place. Right, just so it's kind of sitting on top of those boards there. Alright, so just like that. Not looking too bad. And let's just maybe do another save here before we add the side ones. Okay, so we'll just save another copy quickly. Alright, just take another look here. Okay, so we have some side ones here. Only these ones don't have the top and bottom cut off. They're just sitting on the outside here. Okay, so let's put those in. We're just going to jump into the front view for this, and let's just grab another box on the curry panel, and we'll just drag one out here. Okay, just a random length, give it a little bit of height. Alright, and let's just pull it over to the right side in the left view. Okay, and we'll figure out how long we need this one to be. Let's take another look. Alright, so we want some overlap here. Alright, so let's go into the modify panel. I'm just going to make it a little bit taller. Alright, maybe around 6 or so. The length we might have to adjust after we angle it, but I'm just going to take that down a bit. Make it a little shorter, maybe around 80 or so. Okay, and let's actually rotate it into place. Okay, so I'm going to go into the left view, and we'll just turn it 10 degrees again on the X. Alright, let's jump out here for a second. I'm just going to go into the front view. I'm just going to change the mode here from view to local, just so we can rotate a little easier. Actually, we can probably do this in perspective, so you can see what we're doing. Okay, so we'll make it local, and that'll let us actually rotate it on this angle. Okay, so I'm just going to spin it on the middle here, just turn it. Right, maybe about 30 degrees. We'll see how that looks. Let's take another look here. Right, I'm just going to also move it maybe down a bit. We can also change the move mode here to local as well. Right. And I'm just going to pull it down a bit on the Y. Right, let's actually move it in so it's sitting against those boards. Right, just like that. And let's move it down this way maybe. Alright, that's pretty close. Again, we can always tweak this stuff later on. Okay, so just position it where you think it needs to be. Just going to check that angle again. I'm just going to maybe rotate it a little bit more. Another 5 degrees or so. Right, you can always turn your angle snaps off here if you want to have a lot more, control. Right, but that looks good. Okay, so let's change the color on it. Throw that shader back on. Alright, so let's just go to move, and I'm just going to shift drag a copy over to the other side. Okay, and it's still set to local, so we're going to have to tweak it in a second, but let's just do a copy and say OK. Alright, let's jump out so we can actually see this a little easier. I'm going to do this in the left view. Alright, so it's on this weird angle, but I'm just going to move it over and up. Alright, kind of get it to where we need it to be, and let's just rotate it again. Alright, back like that so it matches the angle of our two boards there. Alright, we'll just move it in so it touches. And maybe down a bit. Alright, let's check that out and see if that's close to where it needs to be. You can see in the front view it's way off here, so I'm just going to jump in there and just move it over. Let's actually change this back to view for a second, and we'll just push it over to the side there and maybe down a bit. They don't need to be, completely even. Alright, take a look. I'm just going to check this again. You can see that it's actually opposite on this side. Okay, so we're going to want to spin it. Okay, so let's go back to rotate. I still have it set to local here, and I'm just going to spin it the opposite direction. Okay, just like that, so they don't match. And we'll just quickly position it. Alright, so maybe just something like that. And again, don't worry about having everything perfectly placed. It's going to look better if everything's a little bit off and uneven. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly do another save here, and we can probably start adding the ladder here. We do have a couple more boards we're going to have to put on the inside, so we'll do that next, and then we'll start building in the ladder quickly. Okay, so let's just save. Never a bad idea. Alright, so let's just add these two to the inside here before we start doing the ladder. Alright, so I'm just going to go out and go into the front view for this. Okay, we'll grab another box on the create panel, and I'm just going to drag one out here. Alright, give it a little bit of height, and we'll just get it into position and then worry about the size here. So I'm going to jump into the left view. Okay, and we'll just move it over here to the left. Alright, want it down here on the inside of the post. Okay, and let's rotate it. Just going to turn the angle snaps back on here, and we'll just spin it 10 degrees again. Alright, push it in so it's touching the inside of the post there. Alright, just like that, and let's figure out how big it needs to be. So let's open up the modify panel. Okay, I'm just going to make it a little bit taller, maybe around 7 or 7.3 or so. Okay, let's make it maybe a little bit thinner. Or maybe around 2.5, something like that, and let's just check the length here. Alright, we want it sticking out just a little bit past the posts, but not a lot. Alright, so let's just tweak this a bit. I'm going to take it down maybe around 73 or so. I'm actually just going to move it over slightly to the left as well. I'm just going to move it up a bit, so let's change the mode to local again. Okay, and we'll just pull it up a bit on the Y for now, maybe something like that. Right, take one more look. Alright, so we got one on the other side over there too, so let's just clone this guy over quickly. Alright, we're going to do that in the left view. Alright, we'll just shift drag. Let's change this back to view first, and we'll hold down shift drag on the X over to the other side. Do a copy, and just give it a spin, and push it into place. Okay, just like that. I might alter the height on here just a little bit so it's not exactly the same. Lower the length maybe a bit. Make it a little thinner maybe. Okay, so let's select both these guys and just put the black and gray shader on. Alright, so not too bad. Okay, so we're almost done with our little block out here, but we are going to have to just quickly block in the ladder. Okay, so we'll just do that, and then we'll start actually adding our detail. Alright, so let's jump out, go into the top view one more time. Alright, I'm just going to get rid of these grids by hitting G and hit F3. Alright, so we want our ladder over on this side, so let's just go grab a box. And I'm just going to drag out a tiny little box here, and we'll just make this side of the ladder first. Okay, so give it some height. Alright, back into perspective. Alright, just take one more look. And I think I did these square if I remember correctly, so let's just maybe make it a little thinner. I just might do 2.5 on the length and the width. Okay, and let's just up the height a bit. Maybe make it a little bit taller. Alright, we are going to angle it, so I might go up maybe 77 or 76 or so. Okay. Let's just clone this. Alright, so we're going to jump to the left view and just shift drag a copy over for the other side. And say OK. Alright, I'm just going to grab both of them and just move them in a little bit, and let's actually rotate them in the front view. Alright, so with them both selected, I'm just going to give them a bit of a spin here. Right, it doesn't have to be a lot, maybe only like 10 degrees or so, and let's just push it in. Alright, and we are going to have those blocks down here on the bottom, so we can actually let this go down past the bottom of the post here, because our ground would actually be down here somewhere. Alright, so I'm just going to move it down a bit, and we'll try to get it positioned so it's sitting on the side of our board up here. Alright, maybe just like that. Let's check it out in perspective. Alright, that might be a little steep. Let's just maybe rotate it another 5 degrees or so. Okay, so maybe another 5, and let's move it back off. Okay, just want to touch it up on the top here. Alright, just want to check and make sure the angle's how I want it. Alright, I'm just going to turn the angle snaps off quickly and just rotate it back just a bit so it's a little steeper than we had it there. Okay, and then we'll push it back in so it's touching the board. Okay, just like that, and let's change the color on these guys. And you can make your ladder taller if you want, or shorter, or straight up, it doesn't matter, however you want your tower to look. But I'm going to do mine like this. Okay, so let's jump out into left view and we'll just start adding the actual ladder rungs. Alright, so I'm just going to grab one more box here, and let's go down to the bottom and just drag one out here. Alright, give this one a tiny bit of height, and let's just kind of center it on those side pieces. Okay, and let's actually get it over to where we need it. So in the front view, I'm just going to push it over here, and let's rotate it again, and just stick it on the sides there. Okay, and we'll figure out if the size is right. I think it's a little too long there. So let's open up the modify panel on this guy. I'm just going to take the length down a bit. I think it's a little too tall. Go down maybe to close to 4 or so. The height, I might leave the height at around 1. I want it to look fairly thin. The width, I'm going to take it down though because I think it's a little too wide. Alright, so we'll go around 21, 22, something like that. Okay, and just push it in there. Alright, so it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these guys. Okay, so let's just change the color and we'll make our copies of it. Alright, just going to assign the shader first. Okay, and let's jump out into the front view for this. And I'm going to change the mode to local here again. Okay, I'm just going to push this down slightly. Alright, so I'm going to hold down shift and just drag up on the Y. Okay, just up a bit like that. And then we'll do 4 copies. And okay. Alright. So just like that. And we can probably space them out a little bit randomly. I might just move this one up a bit and just kind of space these guys out. It doesn't have to be anything exact. Or maybe just something like that. Okay, so I think we've pretty much got all the wooden pieces blocked in here. And I think we're pretty good to go. So let's just do a quick save here, and then we'll actually start detailing this stuff. Okay, so save another copy.